happy World Backup Day. And good morning or good afternoon or good evening or depending on where you are in the world. But welcome to a day that we celebrate. You ought to be backing up your stuff. Look, if you grew up in the 80s or the 90s, you probably grew up with action figures and sitcoms. So hopefully you're enjoying these Veeam shorts as much as I am. Let's take a look at the latest edition.
This week on Data Pains, when Greg loses a file,
No.
he almost loses his mind.
Where did it go?
If you're looking for your brain, it's been missing for years.
But guess who just installed Veeam Data Platform?
Nick!
Already recovered it.
But I think...
No, we haven't been hacked.
What about...
Your face?
Sorry. Still the same.
What happens when the whole team finds out their files are safe and easily recoverable?
Okay.
Find out Tuesday on Data Pains, 6, 7 Central on VBC.
Thank you, Veeam gods.
I have to admit, Veeam or no Veeam, I would actually watch that show. If you want a couple extra smiles on a Friday or on a Monday or any other day, you should check out our YouTube channel. So we have demos of all of our other products. We have all of our archives of our Tuesday industry insights, our Thursday tech bites, etc. You should definitely check out those along the way. Speaking of playlists and greatest hits, I want to welcome the rest of the team for World Backup Day from Veeam. And let's go ahead and have everyone introduce themselves and where they are in the world today.
Corinne Bissett, technologist here at Veeam Software.
And where are you
In
at?
Ohio.
Sorry about that. Hi, everyone. I'm Kirsten Stoner. Happy World Backup Day. I hope, you take a backup today like we all should be doing. I'm also in Columbus, Ohio.
Welcome, Kirsten. Hi, everyone. My name is AZ. They call me AZ inside of the team. I'm also a technologist at Product Strategy team. Been almost 11 years with Veeam. Actually, going to celebrate my anniversary in 2 weeks. And happy World's Backup Day. Let's talk about it.
And my guess is you are not in Columbus, Ohio. AZ, where are you calling us in from today?
Yeah, I was copying that, later we'll show the map, but actually I'm seeing that we are showing the map right now. So I'm based in Armenia, which is in, that little country over there. You can see it on the right side of the corner over there. But yeah.
So our goal
here.
is to turn the entire world green. So please, if you haven't already, tell us where you're from on chat today. We are quad streaming, I think, on 4 different platforms. But wherever you are, let us know where you are from. We got to give props out to in North America. The show is being produced out of Georgia. I hail from the great state of Texas. We've already had representation from Ohio. We see that on the screen. Also, our social media is also being done out of Texas today by my fellow Texans. So please let us know where you are on the map, and we'll come back to that in just a few minutes. Let's start off with an opening question. So if we're talking about World Backup Day, and Kirsten, I love how you said, everyone should be making a backup today. Let's start with a question to kind of get things going while we chime in on the map. Some folks would actually tell you that you don't have to back up the cloud because the cloud does it on its own. Does anyone have a rebuttal point that they want to pile on for that?
Yeah,
Kirsten?
of course. The cloud it's important to back up the cloud. If you take a look at any of these websites, AWS, Google, Microsoft, Azure, it's a shared responsibility. And, it's your data that's running in those machines, and it's your responsibility to protect it. I was trying to think of a good synonym or something that we could use to kind of compare. It's like your data, it's your protecting it. It's like it's your dog, you need to walk it type of thing. But it's true, and it's more important than ever to have an extra copy of data as well. You might think it's being protected by Microsoft, but in reality, it's probably not. Corinne, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, so it's a great call out for anything to do with cloud on anything to do with backup day, just for the fact that it gets forgotten about. everyone thinks we have our data spread across all these regions in redundancy, but we forget if you destroy that first copy, it starts to replicate across, and then all of a sudden, all of your data is gone, and well, we're left without a backup. And I can attest to, I have to go into my lab consistently and try to destroy that data in order to test out all kinds of scenarios. And I can assure you, there are many ways to destroy data inside of the cloud through legitimate means.
Corinne, if you want some help, I could come and destroy some of your data for you. I'm a giver like that. So
Oh, I
while we're at
know.
it, I could also go into some Salesforce and wreck a couple of records. I hear that can be a lot of fun. AZ, any comments on whether or not we should protect Salesforce while we're here?
Well, since you brought Salesforce into the question, basically it's the same, right? So we've been telling the same story for 15 years, for 17 years, how many years the company exists. Well, regardless of that, it's always like 3-2-1 rule, multiple copies of data and spread across different media, air gap to mutability, and Salesforce wouldn't be, it would be another example of that, because believe me or not, Salesforce case is even more interested, because Salesforce itself, if you go to salesforce.com and if you try to, to search for things like data protection best practices, they would tell you, hey guys, there is a need for data protection, just go and get any third-party solutions like Veeam to protect your data. So they're pretty clear about that. And like Kirsten said, they always have their own shared responsibility model, which means that they're going to take care of like Salesforce CRM itself, but they don't like really care, or they wouldn't be they wouldn't want to be responsible for some of the customers' data, and so it's our customers' responsibility to take care of that. So yeah.
Well, also, as Kirsten said, if it's your dog, you still got to walk it, right? Or something like that. I always went more with like, if you lease a car, you still have to change the oil and check the tires. But I'm going to use the dog example now, because that's a lot more fun than leasing a car. Kirsten, something else that you said earlier, and we talked about, we've been telling some of these same stories for a long time. AZ talks about 3-2-1, but you've actually been talking more about 3-2-1-1-0. You've been collecting some numbers for us over time. That particular, it's not a zip code, or at least not normally, but let's talk about the numbers for a minute.
Yeah, so as we know, it's World Backup Day, and at some point in everyone's life, we've probably lost data. So thinking about some numbers and some best practices to live by, one of the things that we've heard, and one of the numbers we've heard in the community, in the industry over the years, and it's definitely not new, is the 3-2-1 rule. And we do put a spin on it here, 3-2-1-1-0 rule. And this isn't new, but it's more important than ever. We want to have 3 copies of data on 2 different medias, one which is off-site, one which is air-gapped or immutable, and then with 0 errors in recovery. So that's just something that should be the standard practice. And if not, you should go above and beyond this standard. But when we think about, immutability, it kind of brings up the subject of object storage, as a lot of times we hear about object storage and object lock, and storing our data in object storage. And so there's this other number that we've been hearing about, and that's that 99.999% durability. And this is something that object storage vendors are talking about, because object storage has been designed for this durability. While cloud and object storage is not new, but it has clearly proven its scale, durability, and availability in the market. And we have been seeing a lot more customers utilize object storage to store their data. And checking that little immutability box is just one way you can make sure that that data remains unchanged and undeleted from things like I don't know, maybe ransomware or a malicious activity. So that also brings me into my last point, is that we have seen that 85% of companies do experience a ransomware attack. And today it's not a matter of if anymore, it's more of a matter of when. So this just really reiterates the fact that backups are more important than ever.
So I love the 85% stat. I've been talking about 5 nines for since before my beard had gray in it. I mean, I've always been talking about the 5 nines. The 5 nines, by the way, is not a zip code. Turns out 32110 actually is. It's a zip code out in, ironically, it's in the peninsula of Florida. And if you look at the National Oceanic website, I think you can actually look it up. You used to be able to by zip code, and they were actually in a hurricane every 2.83 years. And the only reason I remember that is because I was actually just down the road a piece. I was at a DR event, and I opened my speech with, "You're due for a hurricane every 2.83 years, and it's been 3 years since you've had one." And that was my opening line for a disaster recovery. So anyway, speaking of where folks are from and where they're going to and that kind of thing, let's go back to the map because our audience has been turning the world green. So if we look in the new countries first, what do we got? We got Florida in the house. Maybe 32110 is actually representing this morning. So that'd be kind of cool. We got Tennessee, South Dakota, New Jersey, Illinois, Massachusetts, California, Missouri. We are coast to coast on that. So that's awesome. Got to admit to our neighbors up north, love it when Canada represents because a big chunk of the map turns green. Always makes me happy. If we go back to the old world, we got France is representing, the UK, Germany, Switzerland. Look at that. It's like one big old green stripe right down the middle. Thank everyone for joining. We got Romania's in the house, Czech Republic, Kosovo, Spain, Hungary, Bosnia, and Herzegovina. I don't pronounce that one right. I know I don't. You should blame the Texas education system for that.
Herzegovina.
Thank you. And Brazil, again, kind of like Canada. When Brazil represents, big old chunk of the world just turns green. And then Israel as well, and India. So thank you all for joining. Please keep the conversations coming along the way. Okay, so we've covered some numbers. Let's AZ, you did a blog post for the team on for World Backup Day, and you brought some real world examples in for that. The Pixar one I think is especially cool, but take us through what you were kind of thinking about on the blog post, because this is definitely worth a read.
Yeah, well, actually, I have to simplify the story a little bit for the blog post because obviously we didn't have enough space over there for the whole story. But what I really liked about, Pixar, that case happened 25 years ago. And obviously the world was very different in those days. But then, knowing Pixar, they went public, they admitted it later on. And then they even created a cartoon showing, what went wrong and how they were able to fix that, typical Pixar. So anyways, the story is really cool because, they were working hard on Toy Story 2, which, I'm a fan of Pixar's work, so I definitely have watched that. And they had everything, drawn because obviously a lot of work and everything and, the technology, how it was 25 years ago. So a lot of artists involved in this project. And then, they had a backup solution in place. So they were covered and they were protecting everything. And then they used the tape library, and everything seemed to be really good. But then what happened is, so the project grew over the tape size, and tape size was the 4 gig that they had in place. And then the project grew over 10 gig. Well, 25 years ago, that number was impressive. So bear with me here. But then, the funniest fact that they were actually storing the log file, talking about whether the backup was successful or not on the same tape drive. So eventually it was saved at the end of it's supposed to be saved at the end of the tape drive. And, it was there was no space at all because they overgrew the space of the tape. So the backup solution, it tried to, to store the log file over there, but essentially it could not. And it did not error out. It was just saying, backup was successful, but then the log file consists of 0 bytes. So obviously there was a problem. Yeah, and so they, whenever the incident happened, and one of the humans, and actually I think later we can talk about, the importance of backups and why we, have to bring it up. It's all humans, human make mistakes. So one of them just, went and broke and executed the command that would, recursively delete everything. So he did that, and then one of the other guys working on the project, they were like, "Oh, what's happening?" And the system was not like fast enough, so they saw the real life deletion from the system, and they were like refreshing, and then less and less files, and they were like scared, and so they pulled the plug eventually, because they were like in panic mode, and they wanted to recover the data, but then they realized that they wouldn't work because it was all the time, it was just partial set of data there. I'm getting there. So they were desperate already, but what happened is that they had a lady, and she was working from home back in 1998. Because she just had a child, and she kind of negotiated that because there was like no work from home back in the days. So anyways, she had a copy of the whole project in her personal computer. And then the interesting part is that, well, she was able to save the day, and she had to carry the whole PC with her, like to drive on the car. And they even kind of displayed that, like they were really careful driving the car. They were not trying to get any bumps, nothing like that. But eventually, she brought the PC, and they were able to recover everything. So eventually, we all had to witness Toy Story 2 airing at cinemas. So yeah, I think this is a really hilarious story, and this is like just one of them, because I went ahead and I researched a couple of like scary stories for the World's Backup Day, and human make mistakes, like system makes mistakes, and there should be multiple copies of data. Everything kind of leads to that. So
the moral of the story is, if you want to be a good employee, you should take a copy of all of the corporate data out of the building with you every night when you go home. That is not the moral of the story. Okay, but it is an example of why an offsite backup actually is a pretty powerful case. I have a personal story for you. I actually did destroy. I destroyed two companies' data in my early 20s. The first one was really fast. I had two storage arrays, and one of them was completely failed. So I brought a whole bunch of brand new drives in, got it all queued up, and then I was supposed to remirror the two arrays. Did you know there's a difference between when you say remirror 0 to 1 versus when you say remirror 1 to 0? I was not paying attention on that command line, and I ended up mirroring the Virgin drives over the top of the other surviving copy of the data, and so then it was summarily wiped. Okay, so that's my short version, but here's one that actually does come back to a best practice. So again, I was 25, 26. I was working for a reseller. I went into this customer environment, and I knew that this whole network was just screwed up. It would be best if we just kind of start over again. So I went to the admin. I said, "Hey, I really would just like to wipe all these drives, drop all your home directories back in. It is easier to rebuild it than it is to fix it." They said, "Okay, but we're going to check and make sure the backups are good." Logs said, "Yep, logs are working great." So then I said, "You know what? I don't trust the logs because I validate my backups. So what's a file that you just created yesterday? I'm going to restore that from tape, and it restored back fine." It's like, okay, I know I've checked my backups. I know the logs say they're good. I am good. I wipe all the drives. I then repopulate from the backup. The backup works fine. I check all the data still there. I'm feeling pretty good about myself. And so I start walking out of the house, or out of the building. And as I do, I'm walking by some of the desks, and one of the ladies says, "When does my data come back?" And then I'm like, "Oh, it should be there in a few minutes. You just have to reboot and relog in." So I'm walking towards the door some more. Someone else said, "Is my data coming back soon?" Turns out the account that was being used for the backups was not an admin account. And so the only home directory that had been backed up for months was the person who I was directly working for, and no one else had any backups at all. So when you're testing backups, you should be thinking about a broader range of scenarios than, am I protecting my boss's home directory? Because in this case, I personally wiped out everything that was there. There were no backups left, and I just went home for the evening. That's the evening I first discovered bourbon. Completely unrelated story. Anyway,
Oh gosh.
Does anyone else have any horror stories they want to share that might come back with a best practice?
I've
By
got
the
a
way, we
question
should
for
also point
Jason.
out there's a couple good stories. In our LinkedIn thread, we saw zip code 32168 represented, so not quite 32110, so just down the way. Actually had 2 hurricanes last year, so see, we didn't make this up. In fact, I think National Oceanic actually retired the names of a couple hurricanes that were so bad this year that we will never use those names. They are now the hurricanes that shall not be named. If you're a Harry Potter fan. Anyway, also, Ballas from on LinkedIn said we recovered all of our company's data with Veeam backup and replication after a ransomware attack. They didn't pay. They just recovered from backup. So I love that story, and it's much shorter than mine. Does anyone else have any stories? And please keep the stories coming in, and please tell us where you're from. Kirsten, Ren, anybody else? No, I'm the only one who's destroyed data.
I do remember a time when I first joined our team, actually, and we had this lab, and it wasn't necessarily set up incorrectly. It was just used in very interesting scenarios because we test a lot of different interesting data types. And over time, we've grown and had problems like with the data stores. And well, one day we logged into our lab and it no longer worked. We had vSAN going down, and over many, many calls with vCenter or excuse me, VMware over the vCenter, we determined there was critical errors. We had to like hard crash host in order to bring them back up and running. We were in command line for hours. I was sitting at actually this desk with like a lamp on. And even after all of that, we still had to recover, I think, over 50 machines into the environment in order to get our lab back up and running the way that it was before. And mind you, I had just joined this team after saying, hey, I'll help and I'll be an admin in our lab to make sure things are working right for our team. And I'm making sure our backups are right before that, right before our lab goes down, we finally get a clean backup. And it was like that week later, our entire environment went down. And I think we can all remember that week of fun.
Oh, I've had many cases where environments went down. I was doing a trade show once. How, like you set up all your demos like the night before, and you make sure everything is going to be running from main stage. And I told the guy, hey, make sure no one messes with these PCs. That's back when the cloud was not a thing yet. And so we brought all of our PCs in big Pelican cases and stuck them under the stage, and then literally the coffee break before my session came on, the person who was going to come in the room after me said, "Hey, all the plugs are full. Surely no one's been using this one all day. I've checked. I'll just unplug it." And it was my domain controller, and everything else just kind of cascaded down from there. So, and it turns out when you're demoing Windows, domain controllers are important along the way. So, hey, let's check the map for a couple more things and see if we've had any more horror stories that have kind of come in over time. What do we got in the house? So, Arizona is representing right now next to California. We see those in the U.S. Copenhagen. It's been a long time since we had Copenhagen represent, at least on the Tuesday call. Maybe they've been following y'all on the Tech Bites on Thursdays. And then that little bitty island, is that Cyprus? Again, Texas education is kind of failing me a little bit, but I'm pretty sure that's Cyprus along the way. So again, please keep piling on for that. So we got just a few minutes left. And I really kind of want to pick your brains for a second. So let me set up a scenario for you. You got 300 backup admins sitting in a room. You're on stage. Every one of the backup admins has a budget pre-approved, and you have 45 seconds to tell them something. What's the one thing they need to go and do to go look at, check, improve, fix, implement? You got 45 seconds and they have latitude. What's the one thing that you wish those backup admins would leave the room and go back and do in their own IT environments? 45 seconds. Who wants to go first?
I can go first. I would be the easiest one. So we all, even inside of my article, I used the Schrodinger's backup, and I have to really emphasize that because, well, if you have a backup, that's good. But then if you did not attempt to recover from that backup, it doesn't think that the backup is worth anything. So try to implement solution that would be allowing you to recover the data in automatic way and to check the recoverability of data. I think this is the most important one. So, the backup sitting there makes no good to you, but then you have to know that you can recover the data from that backup anytime you want. And if you've got it in an automatic way where you can, drink coffee and see that would be awesome. So this is my tip to all the backup admins over there.
So validated testing. Kirsten, Ren, what do you got?
Yeah, I would just say, like I mentioned earlier, it's your data. You need to protect it no matter where it resides. The worst case scenario is, something goes down or, you haven't tested your backup and then you can't recover at all and you have to go home and get introduced to bourbon again. I mean, I don't know, but, it's your data. You need to protect it. There's so many rules out there, strategies for data protection. And, not only protect your data, but make sure that your backup jobs are also completing successfully as well, are 2 tips that I would give you.
I like those. Right?
So I guess I'll bring it home with probably treating your backup admins with kindness, because if you burn out your backup admins, they're not going to be monitoring your infrastructure, keeping everything in order the way you need it to do. And if you don't have someone dedicated to a process that is so crucial to your infrastructure, you're going to have a bad time.
Gonna have a bad time. I think you said it before as a resume generating event. So, and I'll wrap it up. So for mine, orchestrate a workflow, or if you get the jargon out of the way, get the humans out of the way. Humans are not good at repetitive tasks, and what you really want is to test repetitively using exactly the same recipe that you're going to use when a crisis actually happens. So I am a huge fan of orchestrated workflow and then just test it every month. Bonus points, by the way, what you are looking for are red X's, not green check marks. You're looking for what could go wrong that you could fix before you need it so that your recoveries happen when you do.
And not failed successfully.
Amen, amen. So this has been fun. Now, I personally think that every day should be World Backup Day, but I kind of think every day should be Mother's Day too. So anyway, so let's tease a couple of our next shows that are coming up. So for I'm going to call it World Backup Tuesday. Coming up on April 4th. On World Backup Tuesday, we're going to be back and we're going to be talking about more from the data protection trends research. Caitlin Ellis is going to be joining us. She runs some of our SMB go-to-market, and so she's going to be joining us talking about small and mid-sized organizations and how they fit into the macro strategies going on in data protection. And then on April 6th, or what I call World Backup Thursday, Tech Bytes is coming back, and y'all are going to be visiting on the Veeam community and talking about what's going on at Veeam 2023. Speaking of Veeam, or what we should now call World Backup Week, maybe just to kind of keep that theme going. For World Backup Week, that's going to be that's in May, but you should register now. And if you register using the code that's on your screen now, so VO, that's for Veeam Miami 1001, you'll get a 10% discount, and that's 10% more reasons why you should come and hang out with us out in Miami along the way. And if you need more reasons on why you should come and hang out with us in Miami, check out this video. And happy World Backup Day. Thanks for watching.